Now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. Could that sound just get any worse? I don't know. My God. So we had a little change of schedule, and we're not going to be speaking with Robert Brevall in this hour. We're going to be speaking with, I don't know, should I say it, my favorite stalker, Martha Decker. And we're going to be talking about ghost hunting Texas style. So everybody, I suggest you bring your gun, because that's how we do it in Texas. But don't forget, Just Energy Radio is brought to you by SoulHealer.com, where you can find out about the services I offer, as well as the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. Please do go to the Just Energy Radio webpage and sign up for our weekly newsletter, where you can be kept informed of the excellent programming like you're hearing today, minus the sound part. Sorry. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about Martha, and I'll bring her on the air. Hopefully she won't shoot me through the computer with her gun for being mean. Anyway, Martha Decker has been involved in investigating the paranormal actively since 1999. She founded ETX Paranormal, that's East Texas Paranormal, in 2007, and is the lead investigator. She has professional experience as an investigator, both criminally and civilly. She's a writer and photographer. She retired in 2007 from law enforcement and decided to delve back into writing and photography. Martha brings her equipment to ETX, East Texas Paranormal, for all of the investigators to use. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio from ETXHaunted.com, my good friend, Martha Decker. Hey, Martha, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I didn't mean to call you a stalker on air, but I couldn't help myself.
Well, I know, from one stalker to another.
So for the people that are listening, Martha's really not a stalker too much. She just seems to end up at every show that I'm at. But then if you talk to her, she says that I'm stalking her because I end up at every show that she's at. Maybe we should do a poll and everyone can vote.
I still think you check and see where I am so you can follow.
Yeah. Anyway, we can continue that conversation tomorrow.
That's right.
Because tomorrow, well, actually, let's talk about this real quick, is the Paranormal Kicks Cancer, which is a national event happening in a bunch of different cities around the country. And since we're both in Texas, we're going to be both at the one, obviously, in Texas, in Waxahachie tomorrow. Yay.
Sounds like fun to me.
I just think that it's a really cool event, that the paranormal community is getting together and doing something for, people. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that whole thing?
Well, I think it's a great idea. I've noticed that more and more groups are trying to do something to give back to the community. This event takes place in Texas, Florida, and Illinois this year. Last year it was in 4 states. And if they can't be in Waxahachie, they can also watch it through Internet TV, because it'll stream live. All day tomorrow will stream live, and then their investigation tomorrow night will do the same when they're over at the Oddfellows Lodge.
So they're streaming live the presentations?
Yes, everything. The whole event is going to be people wandering around. People will stop and chat with them, and it's all through ghostshow.net.
Wow, you know more about this than me. And I'm going to be there speaking. People, actually, tomorrow I'm going to be doing the first presentation of my new book, Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods. That's due out in October. So, see, you'll be a first, Martha.
That's good, because I always enjoy watching your presentations because you're rather entertaining.
The lights will be off. I have a PowerPoint presentation, so I can, do all weird stuff and no one will see me. So it's good.
I'm looking forward to it.
But this is, I just think that it's really great. The paranormal in general just has just such a bad rap, and ghost hunting, other than the stuff you see on TV, and that's even kind of borderline. As far as its reputation, I feel like this is kind of reaches out into the community to let them know that we're really not all that bad.
Well, I agree. I just had a conversation with somebody when I posted a link for the show, one of my classmates from high school from 40 years ago, who just thought it's all bunk and that, he'll pay someone $100,000, he said, cash, if you could, just conjure up his grandmother for him right then and there. So I told him I was not a magician.
No, he needs somebody like Marvina Meeks, to just do something like that.
You're right.
Martha, how did you get into the whole paranormal scene in the first place?
Well, when I was a child, there were things through my growing up period, not a lot of stuff all the time, but there were enough things that happened that I didn't know what they were. They were just unexplained, that it kind of piqued my interest in it. So as far back as I can remember, that's just where it started. And then, as I got older, I was more interested, and there were things before 2007, probably about 99 is when I started doing investigations on my own. And then when I retired, I formed the group so that we could do even more research and investigations.
Anything interesting happen when you were a kid? Do you want to share that? I always love, those kind of early stories. For me, I grew up in a haunted house, and, it scared the crap out of me. So, I'm definitely of the opinion that any investigation can be done with the lights on, period.
We do a lot with the lights on, actually. We're not 30 years old anymore, and we might trip more than they would. So. It's a safety issue. So. But yes, there were things, and of some of them, and I don't mind talking about some of the things because they're unexplained to me to this day, and I would love to know what it could possibly be. Probably the thing that I remember the most, I would say maybe 4 or 5, and I don't think there was anything paranormal to this. I think it was a person. But it's what sticks out most in my memory, and I had 2 windows on 2 walls in my bedroom when I was young, and everybody has that feeling of somebody watching them, or at least I pick up on that. And
you mean you had your own stalker when you were little?
Yeah, I think I did. I woke up in the middle of the night for no reason, and I'm facing one window, and for some reason I didn't like facing the windows, but I also didn't like hanging my feet over the bed either. I was a weird kid. I just had a good imagination. But I woke up, and I felt like somebody was there. And I got up the nerve, and like I said, I was probably 4 or 5 years old, not much older than that. And I looked at the other window, and in that window was what looked to me at that age a ginormous hand. It was probably a hand over 1 or 2, the upper part of the window, the two panels maybe, but and it would have been a reflection, I think, probably from light. But all I know is that I screamed and it disappeared. And of course, the parents always are quick to say, "Oh, you just had a dream." Well, that was no dream. Then I had some other things happen, like watching a procession of marching people from the 1800 coming out of the woods behind our house and through a field that wasn't there because it was all woods at the time we lived there. And my room was upstairs in a different house. And they're coming out, and they're like walking with purpose, almost like mob-like, but they're definitely walking with purpose. They have their little, not the lanterns, but they have the sticks with the oil and stuff burning on them. And they're walking, and I'm watching these people. This only happened once. And no, I wasn't under the influence of anything. And they came to a curve in the path, which directed them right to our house, our backyard. And about the time they hit the backyard, I couldn't tell you what happened because I was under the covers. And now I wish I hadn't done that. But I was in high school then. And that was just one thing, another thing that happened. There were some others.
And then you got into law enforcement. And I don't want to talk about your law enforcement career particularly, but I think, and I'm going to jump areas here, but they in the UFO world, they have a number of people, military, Air Force, law enforcement, that have had encounters with UFO, have seen UFOs, they understand aircraft, et cetera, et cetera. Being someone that has come out of law enforcement, where your job is to observe and report, how do you think that helps you in the ghost hunting area?
I think it helps me quite a bit. And we have an unusual group in that the majority of members of our group, it's not all that huge, are all actually current or former law enforcement. But because we're trained, especially if you were in CID, if you were a detective, and I did that for a number of years, you're trained to look at everything, look at everybody different than your average person. So when somebody calls me or contacts me with their story, at that point, I wouldn't say it's that I disbelieve them, because I make a point to keep an open mind, but I go in looking for corroboration, where someone less experienced or maybe younger and hasn't been around as long will tend to believe them 100%. And that's just not in my nature. I'm not calling them liars, because I don't know if they are. I don't know if they aren't until I actually interview them or investigate. I won't be able to make a decision. I get feelings sometimes on what I think it is, but I still need to go and pursue.
Well, I just can't even imagine you interviewing a potential ghost-haunted person. Do you go with a little notepad? Okay, what were you doing on the night of the 22nd?
That's exactly what I do.
Ooh, scary. I don't know if I would be more scared of you or the ghost.
And it's a big notepad. It's not little, and I record it, and I record it and I try to video it as well as record it, so I have the two when I talk, because if I'm talking to them, I can't always write down stuff, because I'm watching the person, I'm watching the surroundings, I'm looking for reactions and all those typical things that I've done when I've sat and interviewed, like someone that's, we'll say the guy that's in prison right now for capital murder, but I use the same techniques for somebody like that of a serious felony as I do that with somebody that is claiming some paranormal activity. I'm not going in and interrogating them. I'm interviewing them, and there is a difference. Interrogation, we might be there 6 hours, and I may be using all kinds of tricks. But the other is I'm just going with the flow. I'm, building rapport. They may think I'm their best friend while we're talking. You're using a lot of the techniques that you learn in law enforcement to investigate, to interview.
I like the idea about, assessing body language and assessing, as they talk, are they sweating or, that kind of thing. Because I could imagine where there are people that, claim that they have something going on and it's not necessarily true.
That's true. And that's what we look for, because that happens too. You have people out there who want a group to come out, and they may seek for a group that's a little more well-known sometimes, and because they think they'll get better status, or they may just pick with as many, inexperienced teams, new teams as they can while they're trying to build up their investigations. But they want to be on TV, so they go, my house is haunted, and they'll make up stories. Or my bed and breakfast is haunted. They want to make money because paranormal is an industry, and they want to try to cash in on it. So you have to watch for people that do things like that, because it can happen.
Well, and I can see, with hotels or bed and breakfasts, places that are more business than a home. You know, I can't, in my mind, see what the value it would be. I mean, other than to get onto TV, but it's kind of getting to be big business. It's like, you can go to the haunted restaurant, you can go to the haunted hotel, and et cetera, and people go there as a destination.
Exactly. And the ones that want to be on TV with their story, I mean, some of them, of course, are very legitimate, and I've known quite a few of them that have been on there personally, and I know their story is true, but you have the people out here who want that 15 minutes on TV, and instead of just doing their little 15 minutes of YouTube, then they can have all the fame they want because they don't get money off of it any other way, but they do get the notoriety among their friends or their family or their neighbors that, Joe and Sally were on TV. It must be a big deal.
You know, I can think of something else I would rather be on TV for than my house is haunted.
I agree.
I mean, there are worse shows, my husband and I are getting a divorce, and here, look at all the crappy dynamics in our house. That would be worse. And
Right. The others, I mean, there are some that, some of them just have a story they want to tell because they want validation. Some of them want to tell their story because they actually might have a message like, I screwed up and this is what happened, and learn from my mistakes and don't do this. But then you always have the others that are trying to cash in.
I'm hoping that that's not really a very frequent or common thing.
Well, I don't think we've run into anybody like that at this point, but then sometimes we rule people out just based on conversation or email. There's certain protocols we follow, and if they don't want to follow the protocols, then we may not go much farther. And after all the years in law enforcement, I have my little hinky radar that will sometimes go off. There's something hinky here, and I'll research the person. I'll check on Google. I'll check on Facebook. I mean, we don't just we research the house. We may research the property. We even may talk to neighbors and might even check criminal history of somebody.
But see, that's a lot more than a lot of groups will do.
It is, but you have a better chance of weeding out things that are not necessarily true. Or you may have somebody that, for example, I had a lady I talked to a while back, and she was seeing demons everywhere, and mostly through pictures. She sent a few pictures, and I could see what she talked about, but it was all shadows and folds and material and things like that. It's like, just like if you were to go outside and look at the clouds and pick out your dogs and your cats and your horses and stuff up there. And she had something traumatic happen to her several months earlier, and then when this started, well, I felt like there was probably more to it. I didn't think she was really seeing demons, but I didn't want to just hang up the phone. And this is where we kind of go an extra step, or I go an extra step. We explained to her that one of our policies, and it is a policy to a fairly certain extent because of liability. I would hate to go over to somebody's house who has some mental problems or something and just make it worse by telling them a bunch of stuff that was not true. So I told her to get a medical exam, get a mental evaluation, and she did. She did. Her family had been trying to get her to do that, but she wouldn't listen to them. But she did do that for us, and I check with her every once in a while, and she did that, and she was put on some medication that she needed, and she's fine.
Well, and that is definitely a possibility. Whether what the person. Well, I'm going to take a step back. I mean, I believe that people that have some mental disorders, have lessened the veil, and they are seeing people walking all around, and they just are not able to filter it from their reality. I do believe that that's a possibility, but then there is, it can kind of take the next step where they're more paranoid or delusional, and so that does happen too.
It does, and I feel exactly the way you do, because I want when we ask the medical questions. Do you have anything? I want to know. Are you on drugs, prescription, or otherwise? Are you schizophrenic? Are you bipolar? That will not prohibit us from conducting an investigation. It just gives us something else to look at as far as everything going on. It's we're not ever going to exclude anybody for the exact same reason that you said.
Right. So I don't know if you want to share this. So what was the weirdest situation where you've done an interview with someone that it actually turned out, to be something real or maybe real?
We have a couple. We're still working on them. I don't want to give a whole lot of detail because it is private, but I can say that one involved, they all actually involve somebody who is in some sort of religion with their family, with their external family. Probably one of the most interesting has been an ongoing one, and we brought in another group actually because I live closer to communicate with them even more frequently and to go to the house. But I've been in touch with them. It's been over a year and a half now. It's probably pushing 2 years, and it involved a child. And they were Church of Christ. And this was so beyond anything that they had ever experienced. They would not have talked to me, or the grandmother wouldn't have even allowed me in the house at one time because I was brought up Catholic. So this was very interesting communicating with them. They have a son who is now somewhat troubled, but in the beginning we believe there is something there, but the family is somewhat dysfunctional, and until we can get the family to do things that they need to do, there's not a lot that we can do to help them.
So do you think that the spirit is more attached to the family, or do you think that the spirit's more attached to the property?
It's not the property. It goes where the child goes. So he
has like a little attached entity.
Yes, and then we have one. Now we do have one that we went to in Kearns, Texas, not that long ago, and this one is not necessarily really weird, but I can talk about this one. This was interesting. The father apparently has had his childhood invisible friend all his life. And every time he moves somewhere, he invites his friend to come with him, and his friend does. So he and his children are in a house. He meets a lady who has children, and it's like, the Brady Bunch. They get married, and they all move in, and there's like 8 kids. And his friend maybe is getting jealous, I don't know, but becomes more active after the wife and her children move in. And we go to the house to see what's going on because they're talking about a lot of footsteps, doors opening, lights off and on and such. And one child is all of a sudden hears something about, you get out or something. And as we go in there for our initial interview, we actually took 4 people. Sometimes we'll only take 2 on initial interviews, but because there were 7 children, and I worked in law enforcement and civilly now, but I've spent over 20 years interviewing children, both the criminals, but especially the victims of crime. So I will take the kids a lot of times. I have that forensic interviews, is engraved in my brain. And so we talked to the 7 kids. And in talking to the children, 7, 8, I forget how many, and they're all young. There's one around 10 or so. Most of them are 8 or younger. We learned that they watch like Paranormal Activity, those type of movies all the time, so being they have that many children living in the house, then they all get talking, and one talks about being pulled off the bed, and it just turns out it's just their imaginations. Whether the child heard anything or not that claims he did, I don't know. The house is an old farmhouse, and there was after they renovated the upstairs for all the children, they found in the closet when they bought it, there was this door that was, or actually a big old heavy thick piece of wood that was nailed into the wall. So they felt like, there's a door back there, and they had never opened it. While we were there, we did the big
reveal.
Yes. Yes, we did. I think the person that used to live there before they did, there were drugs and a lot of stuff like that involved beforehand. So the homeowner, I tell him, you take the stuff off and we're going to document. And he opens up the space, and actually there's enough space in there to put a whole other room. There's a huge handmade chest, almost like a dowry chest or something like that the brides would have, but it's long and it's big and you can't move it. It's built in. And so we did the big reveal on that to see what was in there. And there wasn't anything. But there wasn't a bug in there. There wasn't a spider web. So that thing is sealed pretty tight. And that was very interesting.
Did they have any, has it been determined that they're having like real activity there? And if they've been having activity there, had there been an increase once that room was opened up?
I don't know. We haven't been able to determine if there was more activity. I spoke to the wife, and she said the husband goes out of town. Whenever he's out of town, it seems to be more active, but it seems to be the childhood friend activity. They'll hear more doors open or shut. They'll hear more footsteps on the stairs. And nothing that scares them. It's just that picks up more when he's not there, and when he's there, it tones down. Nobody has heard any more voices or anything since they opened up that space. But I don't know, I don't know why they would have sealed it up. I think the police came in and did a raid in there, so I have no idea. And then they hauled a bunch of people off to jail. I don't know, what was there before it was so cleaned out.
Well, how old did the board seem? Do you think it had been up there for a really, really long time, or was it, fairly recent? And when I say fairly recent, the last 30 or 40 years?
Probably the last 30 or 40 years, I think. The house was probably built in the 30s or 40s maybe. And the upstairs was an addition. And it's just it was your typical one-story, fairly good-sized farmhouse at one time. And they actually have another space on the other side of the upstairs where their hot water heater is. We went in there. You walk past it, and there's a huge open space there. And we haven't gone back and done anything else since then to try to see if there's more, just because of time limitation. Like I said, we kept in touch with them, and everything's fairly calm there. But that would be a place to go back just out of curiosity, see if we could pick up any more activity. Because we didn't pick up any that night. And that night we had two people were interviewing the parents downstairs, and we were upstairs with the children, and everything was being recorded, and we didn't pick anything up then.
That just is really cool. I just really appreciate the time that you spend with the family and the follow-up, because there's so many groups that just go in and, they run around, they take pictures, and that's all they do. It seems like you're doing like a real police investigation.
Well, our motto is we're here to help, and so that means we're here to help. If we need to get them, whatever we need to get them, if we can, we'll try to do it for them.
That's really cool. Okay, there's Karen Kinsey who's been posting in the chat room. She's called in, so I posted I'll take the call if it's topic related. So I'm going to go ahead and take the call. So hold on a second. Karen, are you there?
I am. Hi. Thanks for taking.
Hi. So what's up? How can we help you?
Well, I had been saying earlier, I really don't visit your show I think I've been here once before, so I don't really know the theme. But I have a property that I think there's definitely stuff going on. I think it's more ancestral and some things like that. But on the other hand, I would like to investigate it further myself. I don't really, probably a team coming out is not practical. But I'm wondering for people that think something's going on either in their home or somewhere like that, is there some sort of equipment that is fairly cost effective that can be used to begin to bring it to a point of being data and quantifiable to then, further maybe have it investigated?
It's all you, Martha.
There are a few things you can do. You have to be really careful, and I generally don't recommend that you investigate your own home and bring somebody else to do it. If you're not familiar with what you're doing, you don't want to accidentally open any doors and have something come in that you don't want there. But some simple things you can do if you think there's activity, set up a camera and just leave the camera run. Take a recorder, leave a recorder running. If there's an area that something happens more, leave it there. Especially if you're gone from the house, leave that recorder running, leave that video camera running, and keep a journal. A journal is very important if you end up contacting somebody, because you can go back and you tell them who, what, where, when, why, who saw it, what happened, what time was it, was it raining outside, was it sunny, your temperature. You get all of that in there, and sometimes as you keep a journal yourself, you actually can see a pattern. It may be something that happens at a specific time and isn't just random, and that will help whoever does the investigation if it ends up meriting one a lot.
Okay, I have another question related to that. I read the book on Skinwalker Ranch, which was pretty fascinating, and unless Bigelow was doing a cover-up, which I guess Rita could talk about, then they only really quantified one thing out of all their time there. It was like very elusive. That's not an alien in the background. That's my granddaughter, just so you know. So I'm wondering about that, is how elusive can these kinds of energies, various kinds of energies, be to electronic monitoring? And I'm just going to put it on mute now. Thanks.
You want me to handle that one?
Sure, go ahead.
One of the things that happens with ghosts is, especially if they're your ghost, it's like they pick up your emotional energy. And so if you're like trying to scope them out, they're going to know that. And so they might just hide, and they can be very elusive. It's like, they're here and they're really not interested in taking their next step. And depending on what's going on with the ghost, is it attached to somebody in the household? Is it attached to the property? And getting that kind of determination really kind of changes the dynamics of what's going on. And Martha, you can chime in on this one, but I've done investigations, and you show up and nothing happens. You show up with a big group and nothing ever happens.
This is true. I've been to a number of places, and they're usually the larger places that are notorious for activity, and nothing will happen at all. I can walk in there and I don't even feel like something's going to happen. So it's not an on-demand thing, and it's not a performance thing. You can't usually call them out to perform for you or to show themselves. In fact, if you're doing something at your home to a little bit of an investigation, the last thing you want to do is call them out or provoke them.
Even though they do that on TV, I don't think it's a very good idea.
No, it's not. TV is great. I do watch some shows. They are entertainment, and it's important for people to remember that it is entertainment. And if this is not the only way to learn how to do something. Good example is Cops. Everybody watched Cops on TV. I can't tell you how many police officers I knew, way back when that didn't watch Cops. And Cops was actually a good thing when you're training somebody, because I was a field trainer as well, is go watch Cops. And then everything you see on there, don't do it.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other things, there are the shows that, present ghost hunting teams calling the ghosts out. And one of the things that I know is that there are some groups that is one of the things they do. It's like, come and show yourself. And they get really downright ornery with the ghosts. And I like to say, ghosts are people too. And so if you're being mean to them and saying, get out of here, we want you to go, rah, rah, rah. What if somebody was being that way to you or saying that to you, because then you have to expect that you might get some kind of a reaction from them, not necessarily positive.
Exactly.
So I hope that answers your question, Karen. I muted the mic, so if you have another question, I'll need for you to call back in. So one of my favorite places, and I think it's one of your favorite places, is Jefferson, Texas, little Spooksville, USA. Yes. And I've talked, we've had Jody on the show talking about Jefferson. We've, talked about Jefferson. I've had Mitchell on the show talking about Jefferson. So we've done a number of different shows talking about Jefferson. What is your favorite place in that city? And so for people that are listening, Jefferson is this little dinky, I want to say, throwback town in I have to think, East Texas, where, there's the guy doing the little stagecoach or the little horse and buggy who will drive you around, but it just seems like that's how that town should be populated. Like, there shouldn't be cars. There should just be all these horses and carriages, and it still carries this very old, quaint energy.
It does, because it's a very old town, and I go and I try to, envision it in its heyday, because that was quite the town. That was the stop for the riverboat. You actually had big paddle boat riverboats coming into town with people, because that was the last stop, on the Red River and stuff and everything, until they, busted the logs apart that had jammed everything up on the river. That was the stop for, where they would bring everything in during the Civil War. So it has a lot of history, and a lot was washed away in the floods that came through town. I think it was 40s, 50s, somewhere in there. They lost a lot of stuff with a huge flood that came through. But might say I have stayed at the Pride House. I have stayed off and on for years at the Jefferson Hotel. And for years, the Jefferson Hotel was my favorite place. I seemed to have some kind of activity every time I went. Well, since then, I still like the place, and it's more of a nice, quaint town like that, hotel to stay in. I haven't had much activity the last few times I've stayed there, but they've also gone in, and I feel a change when I go in there. The people who don't own it now, but the people that own it before them, they went in and they put air conditioners in all the rooms. They put, actually the central heat and air, because they had the units in each room, put TVs in there, did a lot of updates, changed wallpaper, and put telephones and things that hadn't been there before. And it seems like when all these modern updates were made, the whole flavor of the place changed somewhat.
So do you think remodeling can affect ghosts and their wanting or desire to hang around a place?
I think so. I think maybe, for example, where Mitchell lives, Mitchell Whittington, when he
lives at the Grove. Spooky! Oh, my God. At least 15 different spooky things going on at that house, and he lives there.
My sister and I almost bought it right before he did. So he just beat us out of it, but I almost bought it as well. There's all kinds of stuff there, and there's all kinds of, in fact, I remember when he first bought the house, I was up there, and they were bringing some stuff in the house. I stopped and introduced myself because I always stop by the Grove when I go to Jefferson. So that might be my favorite place. And, introduced myself. We talked a little bit, brought me into the house, and, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we've done. And then I mentioned some of the stuff because when I was looking at buying it, I actually talked to a bunch of longtime residents and even business owners. What do you think about the Grove, to get their feelings, good or bad, because there are so many stories about it. And almost everybody I talked to said, I won't step foot on that property because they were afraid to. So I go in and I'm talking to Mitchell and ask him, what he thinks about it. And he's like, oh, Shaw, there's nothing going on here. And now what does Mitchell do? He does tours.
And for people that don't know, and we've had Mitchell on the show before, it's Mitchell Whittington, and he writes ghost books. So, haunted house, ghost book writer. It always makes you wonder if Stephen King lives in a haunted house.
Right. Well, Steven Spielberg supposedly ran out of his room at the Excelsior, but they don't like to talk about it that much there.
They don't even like to admit that their hotel is haunted, even though there are ladies of the evening that hang out on the patio on the second floor outside that you kind of can't miss, in my opinion.
Right.
They're ghosts, but I can't. Yeah, they're all over there. So other than Jefferson, what's one of your favorite places that you've gone and done an investigation at?
I tell you what, the group and I have adopted the Bartlett House in Malakoff, Texas, and it's a very historical house. I don't know if they'll ever be able to get enough to fully restore it, get enough money, because it's falling into quite disrepair, but it has such a fascinating history. I love going over there. I joined the garden club years ago just so I could go to the house. And now we're doing a lot of stuff with the house. Is it haunted? I don't know. We go and we take a lot of pictures. We haven't really done a lot of investigation there, but Thomas Bartlett was the man that had the house built. He owned the brick factory next to it. He invented colored brick, which is white brick. He took that brick to the St. Louis World's Fair, the one they made movies about and all that, the famous one, but took his brick there. But during the building of his house, his men were over in the quarry and the brick factory next to the house, and as they're digging up stuff to make brick, they dig up 3 sculptures, and they didn't realize at the time, the house was built in 1929, they didn't realize what they had, so they just thought they looked kind of weird and were weird rocks, so they take them and they stick them on the front porch of the house for Thomas Bartlett to find. Well, it turns out that those funny-looking things are actually 3 sculptures, and they were, and I think they still may be, the oldest sculptures done by man to have ever been found. And when the archaeologists came in and the scientists came in, I know there's one down at SMU. There might be one at the Smithsonian. There's 3 different locations. Put away, of course, because there's not enough room to display things. That's called the Malakoff Man. They can do a search for Malakoff Man and learn all about it. But that backdated people out here to being here 20 to 30,000 years earlier than they believed in 1929. So we just kind of have an aversion for trying to preserve that house and the history.
No, that's really cool.
I think so.
Well, but it also says that, there's whatever might be going on in the house, and then there's what might be going on on the property.
Exactly.
Which obviously had some kind of habitation at some point in time.
It did, a long, long time ago. And now there's a lot of vandals that come in, and who knows what they've done, because there are kids that come in that they pretend they're gang members and they tag all the inside of the house, and it's kind of sad. I have a lot of pictures of the house put on some of my Facebook pages and such, because we would like to get that stopped, but who knows what they've done. They do their little satanic signs and, draw them, and then there's candles we're always picking up when we go over there that they placed in windows on the floor. So there's no telling what energy they've brought to the house as well.
Yeah. And, no one ever really talks about that. They think, oh, well, it's just old energy that you might pick up in a location, and really overlook the fact that there is modern stuff, things that something that I might have done yesterday that I leave the imprint in my house that generations down the road might find.
That's right.
So that's really cool. When I was looking on your blog, and I did not post the blog page address on the web page, so why don't you give out your blog page address real quick?
Okay, the one, not the ETX Haunted, but the other one?
Yeah, because that one I have on the webpage.
Okay, the other one is Mardeck, MARDECK.com.
Okay, but when I was looking around on there were a couple of articles about a piece of equipment, and it just made me laugh, and so now I have to talk about it, called the Probe. And, there's part of me that, doesn't even want to go there. But what the heck?
Well, I did an article. Actually, it was a two-parter. The first part was with April Slaughter, and the second part was with David Roundtree, because they both have the probes. This was something that a gentleman named Andy was trying to work with to communicate with the other side. And the probe is actually just a little device that, telephone people will use. If you've ever been into one of the little buildings that the telephone companies have, there's like a bazillion lines running all over in the inside, and it has a little squeaky speaker on it, trying to find specific lines, and you'll get a specific tone. Well, Andy is trying to, with some modifications, was trying to say that you can connect with the other side, and you can almost have a guide who will bring people to you. So when I talked to April Slaughter about this, because she's like an ITC specialist, she tells me about that. And I've got it on, the ETX Haunted web page has, I think, both the articles on there as well. Talks about she's using his guide and bringing some people forth, and she doesn't let anybody touch her probe because she feels like their energy might imprint on it, and she wants it to be just her energy because had been working for over a year with it, specifically several times a week and at specific times. And then then the second part of it was with David Roundtree.
I can't even imagine what David would say.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can, because he's totally scientific on it and looks for the scientific part of it, the research of it, and he questions some of the so-called interaction and stuff with it, and he doesn't think it does what it does. So I have two totally different interviews from two totally different people that have the opposite ends of the device, and I did that.
Have you ever experienced it? I mean, is it like a Frank's box, or one of those things that you go and get, I'm going to say, a reading from the probe? I'm sorry, that name just makes me laugh.
I know, and the real name of it is in the articles. I've done, the articles were on both my websites, and they've been, if you go to the Paranormal Alliance on Facebook, it's in their group page. It's also on there. It's on the bunch of websites posted that our Rail magazine, when it was online, posted both articles. So they both got out and around. And being a journalist as well, it was important to me to keep it objective and let people get as much information as they can and let them make their own decisions.
So never had a reading from it, huh?
No, I didn't. I've never seen it in person. I could if I want to. There were 5 that were put out for people to test, and I think I know who all 5 are. So if I wanted to get my grubby little hands on it, I probably could. But
well, I mean, is it something that you do a self-reading on, or is it something that someone does for you?
Well, it would be like using a shack hack or anything like that. Really, is in the ghost box and everything. It's just whoever holds it, and they're trying to communicate with anything. And his idea was though that you could actually go get your father. Someone would bring your father to you, your best friend to you, or something, and you could have lengthy conversations with them. And not, a word here or two here or there that you try to put together to mean something, like with, say, the ovilus or something that spits out a word every now and then or something. And that's, a whole other program.
Well, we need to go find one of those so that we can play around with it. And it sounds interesting. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That is true. I'll say that as well.
Well, we have like 3 minutes, maybe a little more than 3 minutes left. What do you have going on? I saw something about you're finishing up a book. Because I know you don't have a book yet because I know you too well. So when's that happening? Hopefully
in the next upcoming few months. I wanted to have it for November 3rd when I'll be down in Seguin for a Rip Cruise paranormal event. I'll be speaking at that event, and I wanted to have the book, and it's probably pushing it for me to get it out now. And that one is on, surprise, using law enforcement techniques with paranormal investigations and interviews. The other book that I'm working on is about some locations and stuff in East Texas, and I'm trying to get contact information to list in the book of paranormal groups in East Texas. And that's like you take your line from 75 and I-45 from Oklahoma to the coast, and everybody that's east of that, I want to list them with their information in that book. And I have people I can use now, but I would like to have more people in there so that if somebody picks up the book and they want to contact a group in their area, all they can do is thumb through the appendix and, oh, look, there's so-and-so, and, we need some help. Let's give them a call. Let's go to their website. Let's send them an email. Maybe they can help us.
But doesn't it seem like paranormal groups, ghost hunting groups kind of come and go? There are ones that have been around for a long time, and then there are a lot of other ones that kind of come and disappear.
Well, I would say that not every group may get in the book just for that reason, because it's a book I'm putting out. I can't be necessarily responsible for every group and what they do, but I am going to try my best to have listed in there groups that are experienced, groups that will be there in a year from now, groups that have been there, groups that don't provoke, groups that don't think it's just fun to hang out, and have people in there that are responsible and professional and I trust.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's an important factor, since you can interview them and make sure they don't have any bad body language or anything, to make sure they're not, bad people, and then you can put them in the book.
Exactly. Well, if you want to be a member of our group, you go through a background check as well. So, not that I'll go through background checks with them necessarily, but there's a lot that I can do to check on a group and just see if they are legitimate or not.
That's why I'm not a member of your group? You did a background check on me?
Oh, no, we'll get you signed up this weekend.
All right. Well, the music's going to be coming up here in a second, Martha. It's always fun talking to you, and I'm glad I finally got you on the show.
Well,
Late as it may have been, but I think it was really good. And I can't wait for your book to come out because we can talk about that book specifically when it's done.
Or I even have a cover for it already.
Woohoo! But if you're going to be in wherever you're going to be November 3rd, then I won't see you in Jefferson.
No, you won't. I had to tell Jody I'm sorry. She invited me to speak there as well, and I was already committed to the event at Moshan Mansion in Seguin on that day.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Well, there's the music, which means I have to go. So, again, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
You will. Thanks.
All right. Bye, Martha.
Bye, Rita.
That's Martha Decker. Her webpage is etxhaunted.com. That would be easttexashaunted.com. And next week, we're going to be speaking with Robert Schock about Göbekli Tepe, the end of a civilization. And so until next week, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy Radio. Be blessed.
Join host Dr. Rita Louise each week at this time for Just Energy Radio. Point your browser to www.justenergyradio.com for more show information and to contact Dr. Rita.